Stuart here. Just a quick video. From time to time people ask me how I learn things, so I decided to make this video. So I'm dyslexic, and that forced me to have a different set of learning habits to succeed, especially in uni, than other people. I was compelled to memorize things because I couldn't take notes fast enough. My hand just would not write that quickly. And if I tried to write too quickly, I actually couldn't read my own handwriting, which, is challenging. So I started out kind of at a disadvantage at uni, and my grades certainly showed it. But I discovered that I did really well in classes that I actually was interested in. And I did relatively poorly in courses that I had to take, but bored me silly. And I figured there must be a mental pattern there. And at first I thought, it's just laziness. I can't be bothered with the courses I hate. I don't care about my grade point average. Scoring systems never really did much for me. So I sort of started the journey of trying to figure out my own optimal mental thought process. And I went through university and then working out in the world, and then more university and more working and more study and more working. And over 20 years or so, I built up kind of a mental model, and I'm going to show you what it is. And it seems unlikely. And in fact, for most people, it won't be useful at all. But I do believe in trying to avoid contempt prior to investigation. I hear something new and my brain goes, really? As the sarcastic part of me kicks in. That's about 99% of my CPU allocation, by the way. But then I go, could it be true? And then I consider the provenance. If your mother has ever told you when someone's insulted you to consider the source, or my father's axiom that an insult from an enemy is a compliment from a friend, you know what provenance is. You're considering the source. So there you go. I also hijacked a word that I liked. A lot of mathematicians and other scientists have hijacked it too. It used to refer to sort of the religious universe and how it was organized. But it's such a good word that I decided I'd hijack it to describe the contents of my head, which is a ever-increasing spider web of connected knowledge areas, including a bunch of areas that don't seem connected but turn out through analogy or usefully connected. And my mental model allows me to sort of wander around, or more accurately, I stay in one place and my brain turns until I see things from different angles. And that ability to inspect things in my head was really useful given my dyslexia. It also turns out to be useful for solving mechanical problems in the real world. If you can visualize the mechanics of something like a broken sprinkler pipe, you can generally figure out what to do about it. So I'm hijacking the word magisterium. Okay, here's my mental model. And I really do this. I don't think I started out doing it intentionally. I think I started out doing it subconsciously, if you will. But, this is, I think, how my brain actually sort of works. So I hear something, or I read something, or I watch something, and I immediately end up with sort of 4 streams of initial data. I have ideas like, what is it? What's it for? How could I use it? Sort of the when, where, how, what, where, why. I then also start a loose set of sort of brain tagging of what domains or areas does this belong in, and does it have analogies to other things, and you know, and then, if there are weights or measures that my brain can apply, um, including provenance. Provenance is kind of like who is saying this and are they credible? So if it's an anonymous source on the internet who says there is no gravity, the earth sucks, they get a really low provenance score. And usually it's at this stage that I just stop caring about something, whereupon the garbage collector inside my head will throw it out. And then from there, I start to boil it down into something actually useful. So the big thing is domains and associations. And if you've seen my video on domain-driven design, you know exactly what I mean by domain. And associations are the spider webs of relevant connectivity between seemingly unconnected or maybe even serially connected domains. And I always think about things in terms of use cases and anti-use cases. I think that's the great thing that came out of my training as an engineer, is my teachers really said, well, there isn't a magic solution for every problem. A classic case of this in computer science is, what is the perfect sort? There isn't one. There are sorts that are better for some use cases and worse for other use cases. What is the best tool for the job in the mechanical world? Well, sometimes a wrench is your friend, and sometimes a hammer is. So it's about use cases. Can you substitute one for the other? Yeah, what are the consequences, though? So that's an anti-use case. And then something which I think is weird to me, and that is I try to map those things to tripwires. And in my universe, a tripwire is, what about a problem will cause me to think about the thing that I learned about oh so long ago, maybe even as long as 2 minutes ago, or as long ago as long as I've been alive. So I find that setting up tripwires, going, when should I remind myself to think about this, is super handy. And in my day job of being a reliability engineer and enterprise architect, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of domains or keywords or situations that cause a tripwire to fire in my brain that fire up the, I should think about this. So sometimes I'll be in a meeting and somebody will say, we probably ought to come up with a checklist for this. And I often can come up with kind of the 80% Pareto checklist off the top of my head, not because I spontaneously thought of it, but because I installed tripwires in my brain to remind me about stuff. So from that point, it gets a little foggy. It gets a little insert magic here. And that is, I mentally think of myself as having a mental grist mill. Now, I don't have an internal narrator. Some people do, but I don't. What I do have, I think, is sort of foreground and background processing in a way that's really hard for me to define. I will often find myself doing something completely unrelated, and a problem that has been presented to me or occurred to me or was of interest to me will suddenly, a solution or a set of use cases or a set of domains and associations will pop in my head unbidden. And I just sort of call that process the mental grist mill. It's said that people can't really multitask. People have done fMRI studies and discovered that, yea, verily, most people cannot multitask. Keyword there would be most. I don't know if I multitask. I know that I task switch very quickly, but I also know that something's going on in the background because this mental gristmill process happens consistently to me. And then when I go to deliberately remember something, because it's been tripwired, or the gristmill is tripped to tripwire, and it's popping back into my foreground process, so to speak, I find I'm able to traverse my personal magisterium through, lacking a better term, a set of search indexes. And it's not like there's an instance of elastic in my brain, although, gosh, that would be handy. But there is something neurologically analogous because I'm able to follow threads of ideas and thoughts and connected things. And I don't know how I do it, and I don't know how I learned to do it. I know I didn't used to be able to do it. I also know that from a very early age, my mental gristmill has been very, very active, sometimes even unwanted. And it sometimes causes me trouble because someone will be talking to me about something and I'll be suddenly transported to La La Land because my mental gristmill poked up its head and went, hey, you know that thing you were thinking about? Here it is. And so that's interesting. And all of that becomes part of my personal magisterium. And for lack of a better description, this is how I learn things. So learning things is the definition of the ability to remember and then use what you remember, right? That's what a lot of people define learning as. Then my sort of mental organization of these 9, transformations of information into magisterium are the secret sauce for me, my mental model. I hope this helped, or at least help you think about how your mental model works. And the more you can refine and define and exercise that, the more powerful the tool becomes. One last thing, I'm willing to delete things I don't like. And not everybody can, it turns out. I have run into people who just inexplicably can't seem to edit out bad ideas from their head, even though they acknowledge they're a bad idea. And other people I've met absolutely can. The closer you are to being on the spectrum, maybe the more you have that ability. Maybe not. I don't know. It'd be an interesting thing to find out. But at the heart of it, the OODA loop is kind of my constant work-a-day tooling that lets me be focused and take the output of the magisterium and put it back in as information and grind through the 8 tools to arrive at the 9th magisterium as a refined magisterium, and then along the way tossing stuff that doesn't work. My name's Stuart. I hope that was helpful.